Voiced by George Will, David Brooks of the New York Times, Bob Woodward of the Washington Post, David Korn of Mother Jones, and Gwen Eiffel from PBS. Also, the paperback edition of The Breakthrough has just come out, Politics and Race in the Age of Obama. As I said, we'll get to Palin in a little bit, George, but let's begin with this debate we just saw with Secretary Clinton and Mayor Giuliani. Mayor Giuliani said the administration had a choice. They made the wrong choice. They should have tried Khalid Sheikh Mohammed in a military tribunal.
They actually have three choices. They could put them in civilian courts, could go to the military tribunals, or they could just do nothing and have indefinite detention. Most people are uncomfortable with the third. Only 6 of the 241 people who were in Guantanamo when Barack Obama became president have been sent into federal courts and enveloped with American rights, which is what bothers a lot of people, because they think this is turning this into a law enforcement, not a war problem. Well, it is both, actually, and the FBI has been busy this year, and we've all been reading about it, breaking up, using law enforcement techniques, nascent terrorism in this country. So it seems to me that I don't think they've made a bad choice.
And there have been convictions.
There have been lots of convictions. There are close to 200 terrorists who are already in super maximum prisons here in the United States. You know, George W. Bush said, we will capture these people, we will bring them to justice. Bringing someone to justice actually is something of an obligation and not always easy to do. And as Attorney General Eric Holder said the other day, he's going to be asking for the death penalty for KSM. So if that's the case, it seems to me we have a tremendous obligation just to show the rest of the world that we will do this in an open, accountable way if we're going to give them maximum penalty. And you already have Mayor Bloomberg and Police Commissioner Ray Kelly in New York supporting this too.
But David, the death penalty could give Khalid Sheikh Mohammed exactly what he wants, martyrdom. He will also have the ability, probably limited to some degree, but to get up there and make his case to the world.
Not so limited. I think, you know, what is terrorism? Terrorism is an act of propaganda. So now he gets to commit the original act of propaganda, which was the attack. And now he's going to have a long trial, an international reality show, which will be followed here, but more importantly, followed around the world. So he's getting a second bite at the apple at spreading his propaganda message. And I think the second mistake is identifying this as a crime and not as an act of war. To me, 9/11 was a national security issue. And it has now been redefined within the administration as a crime. And as a result, Eric Holder did not consult Barack Obama, did not consult the people who are responsible for the national security of the country. He separated this out from the national security concerns, and to me is about to conduct a long circus-like trial, which will have national security ramifications.
Not necessarily. First of all, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed has made it clear he wants to plead guilty, and if he pleads guilty, there's no trial. There are other complications in all of this. First of all, you could have 5 trials, not just one. They would separate out the defendants. In the case of KSM, as they call him, he has implicated himself in the murder of Daniel Pearl, the Wall Street Journal reporter. So if they try, you know, do you include that in a trial? Do you not? These people, there are questions of competency involving a couple of these people. Are they going to be their own lawyer?
Well, they will be appointed some lawyers, you're exactly right, but there are other complications as well. Never read his Miranda rights, could be a problem in a criminal court. He was waterboarded 183 times. Now, the Attorney General says he's got evidence that is untainted, but you could argue that all the evidence is tainted after that.
Well, there are a lot of good question marks. What is the evidence he has that he says that is untainted? Do we know that this is really going to go to a trial? And not just because he has already confessed, by the way, at Guantanamo. Many times has already said, yes, I with this hand killed Danny Pearl, for instance. He's already confessed to a lot of this. So we don't know whether there's going to be a trial at all, let alone a show trial. And we also have to keep in mind that if this does go to the New York district, they tried terrorism cases before, and in 94% of the cases found them guilty. This could go on for years and years, it's true, but it's also a real possibility to consider that it won't go on at all, and that the administration would not, and that the Justice Department would not be taking it this far unless they had something that we haven't seen. I don't know.
We do know something about his character. There have been front-page stories in the Washington Post and the New York Times the last 2 days describing a narcissistic personality who likes to make a big show of himself and who wants the big show, who's written long memos expressing himself and the message he wants to send the world.
Upset by that photo of him where he looks slovenly and overweight.
So why would he pass up a chance?
But Moussaoui did the same thing at his trial. It was a circus-like atmosphere. He gave speeches. He was his own attorney, then he wasn't his own attorney. I don't see why their considerations should come into our considerations. We should make decisions based on what we think is right and best, and if they want to try to exploit that, well, give them the shot. But at the end of the day, it's about our values, not about his
well,
values.
this is much bigger.
Much is going to depend on the caliber of the judge in this case. We saw in the case of the Chicago, whatever they were in 1968, that Judge Hoffman, it got out of control. We've seen in the Rosenberg case, it much depends on the caliber of the judge in maintaining order, and judges are Caesars in their
maintained
courtrooms.
order in the Masawi court.
That is correct. Even Bob, this guy wasn't just implicated in the execution of Daniel Pearl. He said, "I cut his head off with my blessed hand."
Yes,
so
exactly.
he's given rather a lot of information that is pre-waterboarding or post-waterboarding and not
the
brought out by
symbolism
waterboarding.
could be very important by saying, look, we let narcissistic personalities get justice in this country, and I think there's a good chance he will really get justice, and let's not be concerned that he's going to exploit it for his purposes. People on trial are entitled to do that.
Well, it's not like the option is no trial. We have another set of procedures which we are assigning to a series of other people who are in Guantanamo Bay. These procedures tend to be reserved for people captured in acts of war on foreign soil, and which seems to me fit this case.
And I think the administration is hoping that this is going to send the message to the world that we are not afraid of this, that we can try them in our criminal courts. It could, though, lead to the worst possible outcome. He gets off on a technicality, but he can't be released. You lose on all.
But there are also
fronts.
there's several other charges pending on him too. If he happens to get off on the 9/11 charge, there's the Danny Pearl charge. There are other acts of terror that he's been involved with going back to the early 90s. They have a string of cases lined up.
Meets him at the door and says, "Oh, don't go quite yet.
Well, you're not going anywhere.
He's not going anywhere. So no one has to worry about him being released.
But also there's a question of what the charges are. Where there's an Alice in Wonderland aspect to this, because Attorney General Holder has indicated he will seek the death penalty when we don't know the charges yet.